Hey, I'm Mike Meiers, and this is the Songwriting for Guitar podcast, which is geared to support songwriters and producers to gain confidence and turn pro. I bring on industry experts to help you improve and monetize your skills, engage better in the writing process, and build healthy habits to create a sustainable career that you love. Caffeinated, inspirational, conversational. Hey, what's up, friends? Mike Meiers here with the Songwriting for Guitar podcast, episode number 72, Licensing Myths. This episode, I'm super pumped to have my buddy Clint back on, and we kind of dive into licensing myths. This is a world that we are constantly in, and I get emails constantly. I get DMs. Clint gets DMs, emails from people that are interested in getting into this world, whether it be production music, full songs, but they have this baggage of false beliefs, things that are not true about licensing that they're carrying around that are also, informing how they're making decisions. So him and I come in and we just destroy these. We destroy these myths. But not only that, we want to give you some helpful hints on things you can start doing if you want to move in this direction. Because if you're still listening to this, we're at episode 72, I talk about licensing a lot. This is the thing that I do. This is the thing Clint does. So we're going to dive into things you shouldn't believe when it comes to licensing, but some steps to kind of further or start to dive into this world of licensing. So here we go. Let's dive into it. Episode 72, Licensing Myths. I'm happy to have you back because you're a wealth of knowledge on beards, music licensing, just all that. Dude, I started using that brand too, and my beard feels so much smoother now.
Dude, I love it, man. Yes.
I didn't even think about hydrating my beard. I got the hydration spray.
Yes.
God, no wonder it's dry. No wonder it's like
difference.
Frizzy. And I didn't even think about, I'm using a plastic comb and I got a wooden comb now and it's different. I also know it pulls less and it's getting, but we're not here to talk about beards. But your beard it really does too. I will say yours is always super chiseled.
Thank you.
On the line. It seems so precise.
Thank you. Yeah, so I was a barber, not an official barber, but it was kind of like a side hustle in high school. So I used to cut hair a lot. Friends, cousins, my dad, my brother, so I used to cut hair a lot. And then in college, I would cut a few friends' hair. So, over the years, I kind of got skillful with it, I guess. So, yeah.
But dude, yeah, that was when I saw your video and I was like, I'm glad, not that I don't watch your videos, but that one I did not speed up. I didn't move. I just watched, I think I went back to when I was at the store. I was at Target. I was like, okay, what was it? And I was using it as a reference to put in my... But music licensing too. I mean, you also do that. It's not just beard related things. It's music. Beards. It's just not beard related things.
Yep.
But the one shirt that I love that you wear all the time is I make music, not excuses.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, when it comes to licensing, and I feel maybe especially in the past maybe 2 years, I've noticed more licensing things come up where it's like maybe occasional courses that I have no idea what they're talking about, or it's just like I'm not sure what they've done. And a lot of people are now songwriters are like, I should do sync. It's a buzzword that seems to be thrown around a lot more now where it's like sync. But there's so many false things that they believe about licensing that they think are totally okay. And I wanted to get in to some of those with you because I had a few people that asked questions. And so I have this little questions below that, I would love to give your take on it. But because the first thing people think, you can't do sync for a living. You can't do licensing for a living.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, wait a minute. You do licensing for a living.
Exactly. Yeah. I still get that question. Like I show people the process. I show people what I do. I show other producers how to do it and how to make money from it. And then they're like, well, can you actually make decent money with this? Yeah, that's why we do it all the time. That's why, we kind of, at least me personally, I decided to take this lane versus some of the other lanes that you can take in music because, it's something that, I feel like the amount of time that I put into it, I feel like it's a little more easy to spend time creating something that I know has a higher chance of actually getting used and placed in something versus going the traditional route and trying to play something on, one of the few big artists out there that could really change your life in the form of, income and royalties and things like that. So I feel like sync is like a direct source to honestly what makes up a lot of the major artists' income and major producers and songwriters and things like that, so
I think when you mention that too, the idea that that the end result is going to be like, oh, there's a specific reason of where I know this will go, what it can be used, there's an end goal. When we're writing songs and people are like, producing songs for other people, at first it's just like you get the journey isn't, the end result isn't supposed to be just the song. That's only the beginning. Like, even when it's produced and it's done, where's it going to go? Is it going to be, so the idea that you have, do you enjoy kind of like I don't want to say the autonomy of being able to just like, there's a lot of variables that are in your control in terms of how much you want to create and like the style that you want to create. And how you want to organize your time, as opposed to, well, let me set up this right with so-and-so and let me wait and let me see and let's wait for, because when you work with an artist, sometimes if they're doing an album, there's this long period of time. I feel like the Titanic lady, it's been 82 years, where it's just like, is it done yet? Where it's like with licensing and production music, like cool, done. You have a lot of control.
Yeah, I agree, dude, because if I'm working on a production music album for a publisher, for that first round, of course, they're going to have their notes and revisions and things. But like when I say it's done or when I feel like it's done, then it's done. I just send it off. There's not a lot of, let 10 other people listen to it on my team. And then 2 of these people think we should go in a different direction. Now you're reproducing the entire record and spending 2 more weeks on it. You know what I mean? So it's just like, there's a lot of time saved in that, and yes, there's a ton of autonomy, and I love it because there's no pressure. If you get a brief, you have the option to say yes, I have the time to work on it, or no, I have to skip this one and get in on the next one. So I love that.
I think too exactly that you have the ability to be like, oh, I can pursue, like, oh, I'm looking at the brief. What's the turnaround time? Okay, yeah, I can do that. Or it's like, that's not today, and it's okay. It's not like. Because there's going to be so many more flooding your inbox.
Right.
Purely because I think of too, probably when you got into licensing, there were certain realms of licensing. Like, there was Netflix. We're not that old where it was like Netflix was in existence, but now there's so many more streaming services. It seems like every day, every week, every month, there's a new one that's coming out, and they're getting into a batch of new productions of new shows, new stuff. So it's just like, there's so much opportunity and work because every month, every year, there's some new streaming services, new shows, everything created from the ground up that need music.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, the need is crazy, dude. That's another question I always get. Like, is it oversaturated? Like, is it hard to get in? Like,
dude, no. Literally, one of them said, I hear it's oversaturated. And I'm looking at these notes and I'm like, it's not. It is not oversaturated at all.
Yeah, dude. Because I'm like, if you just turn on a streaming service and scroll, bro, like all of those shows, documentaries, movies, animated series, what else they got on there? Like they got video games on Apple TV, and Netflix I think has video games now. Like all of that stuff needs music. So there's plenty of opportunity.
Now, okay, so we know what's not oversaturated. Would you agree that what is oversaturated are people setting the bar low in licensing in terms of what they try to submit, where they go, this is the throwaway song? This, because I got a question here that was asking, I have an old album. Can I have that? And it's just like the fact that you started with that phrase, I have an old album, means nothing has happened with it. So I'm wondering, can I throw it at the wall, hope it sticks, and see if something places?
Yeah.
It's not to say that it couldn't, but like, when it's like you're scraping the bottom of the barrel with that I feel that's really oversaturated of people pitching music that shouldn't be pitched.
Yes. I agree. And, I know because we talk about, your music shouldn't sit on your hard drive and things like that. And yet, like, that's true. You don't want your music to just sit on your hard drive. But some of this music has been sitting on hard drives for decades. And it's not syncable. I'm sorry. But, sync is not like this trash bin to just throw all of the unused things.
That's an Instagrammable clip right there. It's not a trash bin. You're right. That's so good.
Yeah, it's not a trash bin, man. And honestly, over the years, looking back, man, like the quality of music that's being requested in sync has gone up, bro. Like the references are top 40, the Billboard charting songs. You know what I mean? So they're looking for that quality now. So you can't get by not mixing, not mastering, not using quality sounds. You know what I mean? So it's like, no, the production value has definitely gone up, and I think it's going to continue to go up and increase because, they're a lot of times they're replacing big records. So, you want to be able to compete, at least sonically, and lyrically, to be honest with you, man, because there shouldn't be a difference in quality. Like, you should always be striving to create the best music possible, whether it's for sync, whether it's for an artist, whether it's major indie artists. Like, it shouldn't matter.
That line that sync isn't a trash bin. It's true, because it's like, you're right. Some songs that are sitting in your hard drive should be pitched, and there's some that, like, I don't know. I have hard drives that are full of songs that were okay that I realized they were my practice, I guess. Like, they weren't bad, but like there were some pieces missing. And now that I look at it, I have to gauge, is it worth diving back in and fixing? And this is another thing that I see a lot of people holding on one particular song too tight-fisted, like, no, I'm gonna go back and fix it. I'm like, okay, even if you do, it's still terrible. And it doesn't, and I don't mean that in like a heartless way. It's just like, it was a song, and its purpose was to get you to a level to write another song that will be better.
Yes, I agree. When I got started with like one of my first sync deals, he was kind of like a music supervisor / publisher, and he kind of put me up on game and was just like, yo, because I sent him a bunch of old like R&B tracks, and I was just like, yo, I just want to get all of these on TV. So I loaded him up with a handful of tracks, and he was just giving me notes like, all of these, number one, they're too long because they were originally made for artists. They had bridges, elaborate bridges, bro, like key changes and everything, man. So he told me, he was just like, it doesn't need to be this long. Cut them down to a minute and a half to 2 minutes. You can't have fade outs. I was the king of album fade outs on my track, so I had to put sting endings on there. And then, yeah, man, like some stuff, when you look back, you just like, is it even worth going back and fixing and remastering? And sometimes you'll pull up those old sessions and sounds aren't there. It's just like, just create something new. You can make another song.
Because the time that you'll spend trying, there was this dude when my band used to record. He was like this old, like, you could tell he did a little bit of drugs during his time. And so he was he would always turn back and he goes, brother, you can't polish a turd. And then he would lean back and then he'd go back to do whatever. And I still think about that, where it's like, yeah, you've gained all this new skill and knowledge, but if you spent it trying to build up something that honestly just, it's not going to be worth it. You're going to, as opposed to building something from scratch will probably take half the time. It'll be way better with all this new knowledge. It's going to be amazing. Don't worry about those old songs. And you're right, because sometimes they're too elaborate bridges. Mm-hmm. One thing I see a lot, and people are always like, can my tempo change? And I'm like, it can. You probably don't want it to have too many jump. And I think it's just like, they mean a rhythm change, like there should be set. And I'm like, cool, like you can just then use the counts in between the 1, 2, 3, and 4. It doesn't have to jump to 160 and then jump back down to like these very odd, like weird times all over the place.
Yeah. I think that would, especially in sync, I think that would like mess up the flow of things, because usually when they're using it, it's like, they're kind of looking for certain tempos. So yeah, that's funny. I've never done that before.
Neither have I tried to think about it. I was like, when was the last time I changed a tempo? And I was like, oh. And it's interesting that you mentioned some of these things too, like fade outs. I hear a lot of fade outs, and I'm like, nope, no fade outs. It's like no fog machine. It's like the music fog machine where it's like the song slowly disappears, and it's like, no, don't do it. Yep. Just have a clean ending, so we can just be like, oh, that's where it ends.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing you mentioned on the front end, which I thought was interesting, and I wonder if you run into this, where you provide lots of resources and knowledge. So when someone says, cool, I want to do this, a producer goes, I really want to dive in this world. And you're like, absolutely, you can make a living. Here you go. And then they drag their heels a little bit. And they drag their heels. And they drag their heels. And they're just like, oh yeah, I'm going to get to it. But they never really get to it. Even though you're providing the knowledge and the resources, what do you think, if we were to divert a little bit, what do you think stops someone from actually, like, even when they have the resources, they got someone like you, and then they're just like, I'm going to think about, is it stubbornness? Is it ego? What is it?
They're thinking about it. That's what it is. You can't think about it, man. You just got to do it. And I know I come across producers who are like that to this day. Like, they're dragging their feet. It's like, and I've told them, like, you have the talent. I think some of it is you get in your own head.
Yeah.
You don't know if your music's ready. You don't know if it's good enough. I would say you don't know the steps to take, but we give them that,
Yeah.
So, it's getting out of your own way and having a belief that you can actually do it, and your music deserves to be placed and is good enough to be placed. You just have to take those first steps. And some people, they want to have all the steps figured out up front before they start. Like, they want step 7 figured out before they even took step 1. So it's just like, yo, just take step 1, bro. Like, just step 1. And then that step, you'll learn so much that it's going to be easier to go to step 2. And then step 3, next thing you know it, you're step 11, whatever step 11 is. And it just starts with that one step, man. You can't overthink it.
Do you think it's because people are used to, maybe it's because we're raised, we go to school and we're told, like, it's this grade, and then you go into this grade and you're going to learn this, and then you go this and this and this. And so they're given this very systematic approach of like, and then suddenly this like, music, well, there's nothing. What's the graduation point? And when I've learned everything, does that mean I'll get my 6-figure placement? I'm like, no, nope.
Yeah, man. Like, it's one of those things, man, where I feel like I was talking to another sync buddy, and it was just like, yo, like, you really have to fall in love with just the process of working in sync. And I think when you do that, and you don't necessarily focus too much on, like, when is this going to get used? Is this going to be on TV this weekend? I think when you kind of forget about that, you start to fall in love with just the process of creating for sync, creating stems, writing a song that is wide and can be used for different situations. And then you just fall in love with the process so much, you look up, and then all of a sudden things are starting to work for you. And I think that's been huge for me, man. Just creating, submitting, and then forgetting, and just enjoying the process.
Yeah, just enjoy. But that, to me, if you love something and you enjoy the process, you'll spend time refining it too.
Yeah,
you don't refine things that you don't enjoy. You'll and it's interesting. And you also aren't patient with things that you enjoy. When you hate something, you're just, you move it to the side. It's good enough. And but the vocals will try. It doesn't matter. It's fine. And then you start doing those blanket statements. It does, and it starts to become sloppy.
Yeah.
And it's just that, to me right there, you have to love it, because I don't know. When I first started, I had to love it because I was not going to make money for the first 2 or 3. It was going to be a little bit of like investing in gear, training, coaching programs to really up my skills with very little return on investment. But knowing like it's probably not going to be another like 3 years until maybe I get a bite. And the bite's probably going to be like the lowest hanging fruit. Like it's going to be like, and it was like Teen Mom. And it was like, oh wow, between three of us, we're splitting this 500. But it was like the most satisfying, like, I don't know what 200 or not even that, like $100 and something of being like, okay, so I got a fourth of this Apollo twin was bought with this. So there we go.
There you go. Exactly.
But it was satisfying to know, like, aha, so it can happen. And that placement was just enough to hang on and go a little further. And I think you said something about the belief in yourself. Do you think it's too, you can't, I don't want to say you can't doubt, but you have to have a strong belief that it's possible, and you can't have like this wavering, like, well, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I think you do. You do have to believe like it's possible, because if you go into it skeptical, I see producers, they go into it, they're like, I don't really know if this could work, so I'm gonna submit 3 tracks. Let's see if those get placed first, and then I'll create some more. And then you lose so much momentum when you do that. And then say one of those 3 tracks actually does get placed, and then 3 years later you realize, oh, it does work. So now these whole 3 years you could have created a catalog of music that could have been generating royalties for you and upfront sync fees, but you waited that whole time. So now you're kind of starting over, and you may have to wait another 3 years just to get that momentum back, you know?
It's interesting, because that's almost like people think it's plateauing. It's not even plateauing. It's actually regression, where it's like you'll actually have to spend more time going back to where you were when you submitted that, because so much has changed. And I think, the one thing I'm always big on is like active listening. You have to listen. People are like, well, do you have, I have this, and then they name some sort of style and genre, which isn't awful, but it's like, I don't see that placed as much. So it's not saying it couldn't get placed, but if you're saying this retro fusion, jazz, blues, banjo combo, could there be a show that needs it? Yes.
Yeah.
But that's like one show.
Yeah.
That's one. If you're looking long term, you're going to have to expand your palette just a little bit and listen. And is it because, I don't know why people are hesitant on listening? Like, that's another thing I see people sometimes dig their heels in, like, no, I shall not. And I'm like, oh my Lord, just turn on and listen. Just listen. What's wrong?
That's it. I have a reel in my drafts right now. It was talk, and I haven't written out like the caption of it, but it was like an audio, and pretty much it was just a guy saying, you shut up, and you shut up some more, or something like that. And I was like, this applies to so many situations, especially when you're trying to learn like a new skill or, learn how to do something that you've never done. The best thing you could do is just shut up and listen, man. I agree 100%.
Hey, it's Mike, and I just wanted to jump in the middle of this episode to let you know that starting February 24th, I'm going to be hosting a 3-day songwriting immersive with my good friend, artist, and songwriting for guitar coach, Lainey Dione. So if you're someone who's been frustrated on where to focus in your songwriting, if you're stuck with so many unfinished songs, if you're even confused on where to start, this is something for you. In these 3 days, these live 3 days, not pre-recorded, but live, we're going to give you the roadmap that you need to understand what you specifically need to work on in your guitar work when it comes to your songwriting, what you need to do to get your head in the right direction so that this class will help you become an unstoppable songwriting force. So if you have not claimed your ticket yet, go to songwritingforguitar.com to claim it. Remember, everything kicks off February 24th. This is going to be 3 days in a row live, and this is going to be interactive. You're going to get a chance to ask us questions. So remember, don't let yourself fall into this February slump where you let your goals kind of fall to the wayside. If you're struggling, if you're feeling frustrated and you're unsure, you've got all these unfinished songs, this is the perfect time to kick it into gear, to get some guidance, to get some help. So go to songwritingforguitar.com to claim your ticket. and I don't know, maybe it's songwriters are worried they're going to copyright, or producers are worried that it's going to be some sort of infringement. Because I'm always like, when people say, hey, what do you think of my song? And I'm like, cool, what's your production reference? I don't have one. Okay, I don't know how to measure it then, because it's just like, what am I doing? Because the rules of every genre are so different. And especially for licensing, when they're like, hey, I want something like 2015 Coldplay, I better not be giving them 2000 Yellow Coldplay, which is so organic and not very synth-like and synth-based and electronic. It's just their world's different. So it's like there's a completely different system of measuring. And I feel people that maybe have that resistance. Oh yeah, because that was one of the questions. How much do production references matter? And I'm like, yeah, they do. They do.
Matter a lot. I mean, that's how you know what to do. Tell me if you feel this way. But I feel like people want things in sync to be more complicated than they are. Like, it's not, I'm not saying sync is easy, but it's simple. If you like, you get a brief, it tells you exactly what they want, length, tempo, style. They give you references. They, tell you if there's some money up front, if it's just back end. They tell you everything you need to know. All you got to do is listen to the references, create something original that's similar and has a similar vibe to the reference. Like, they give you the blueprint.
They're telling you exactly what they need.
Yeah. So I feel like people want it to be more complicated.
I think they do want it to be more complicated, and they also want to hear, like, the thing that they've had hidden away is the thing they really want. They don't want this. They want this special part of me, because I think they're so tied to the song and they're so emotionally, even their genre, if their genre isn't that syncable all the time, or it's not as requested, they think like, well, there must be something wrong with me. No, it's an okay genre. You just have to expand a little bit more. But I do think it is not that complicated. You got to put the work in. I completely agree. But like, it is where they're like, here's the reference we want. Here are the 3 examples. Here's the BPM. Here's the scene that's probably going to be used. Here's what we don't want. And here's the money that could possibly get. It's like, okay, very good. And to me, the accessibility of things like iSpot TV, TuneFind, you can go to Warner Chappell Production Music, Universal, Extreme Music. You can go to all these BMG Music. You can listen to all these things that have tons of albums that are already uploaded, that have been vetted, that have been, you have a blueprint.
Yep.
It's whether you choose to put in the time to start assembling it, or if you start saying things like, well, maybe the phrase is like oversaturated. It's not worth, is almost kind of a cop out for putting in the work of just not wanting to. Or it's like, I don't like that answer, so here's a made up answer and a system of crazy like things that aren't true, but I'm going to choose to believe them because it makes me feel better about not putting in the work.
Yeah, man. I think that's it, because when it comes down to it, man, there's only a few reasons why you can't get your music placed. Either it's not what they're looking for, but timing could be bad. It's just, you're submitting Christmas music in December when everybody's already picked out and placed the Christmas music. Or it could be you still have to work on your craft, your production, your songwriting. It may not be where it needs to be in order for a publisher to say yes to it and pull the trigger on it. Or it could just be you're not matching with the right publishers based on the genre that you produce. So it's really only a few reasons, man. And you really have to be honest with yourself and say which one of these reasons is the reason why I'm not, making any ground, and then work to improve that area. And that's the work, man. That's the work that a lot of people don't want to do.
But that's so good, because that's like, that has to be a real moment with yourself. And maybe that's an ego thing of just like, cool, am I okay with this? Am I willing to push it aside and be like, totally makes sense? Or am I like, they don't know me. It's just like, I'm just going to wait here until somebody knocks on the door and goes, see here, kid, this is what we've been looking for. Come on, boy. And, that's sort of like, and it's like, that's not how it happens. If you're silent and you're not willing to put the ego aside and do the work, then your music career kind of gathers dust.
Yeah, man. I had to do that to myself, man, because like when I first learned about sync and I was trying to break into it, some of my favorite genres like neo soul, jazz, R&B music, like the slow kind, not like the up tempo stuff, man. Like I could create ballads all day, man. I love it. So I was trying to break into sync with that, like R&B ballads, but like they're not asking for this stuff. So it took me like 7 years of bumping my head trying to figure out, okay, this is what they actually want. I have to do some things and, explore some genres that I may not necessarily love to produce every single day, but to get my foot in the door, I have to realize like I'm in a service-based business and I have to serve based on the needs of the client. And when that switch happened, that's when everything started to take off.
I'm just like nodding and do it because it's maybe that's the other switch is like people go, oh, I don't want to think of it as a business. Well, you have to. You better think of it as a business. You said it's a service-based business, which is true. We are serving supervisors, music editors that are looking for a particular vibe that is going to complement a scene. Either it's going to work for it or it's going to work against it. The ones that work against it never get used. The ones that work for it, those are the ones that work out. If we were in any other industry, this totally makes sense. If you and I were going to like open up a restaurant, we wouldn't just build a building somewhere and then have it set, order a whole bunch of stuff and be like, cool, what type of restaurant do you want to create? No, we would do the research on areas and what are price points and what are the best locations. What is the area already have too much of? What do they not have enough of? What's the culture there? All those things affect whether it's going to succeed or fail.
Yep.
So why wouldn't we do that?
We don't do that in music. We're just like, no, it's our passion. It's what we love. It's creative. So you just take it.
Yeah, it is. And it's just like, and then they go, just take it. And it's just like, oh, that's just awful because nobody would do that. Imagine a restaurant was like, this is what we make. This is how we do it. Just take it. And it's like, but exactly. I'm allergic to this. Doesn't matter. You'll grow a tolerance to it. We wouldn't do that. But it is so interesting. But I think what you described too, like for you, the genres you were into, you were pitching. I was heavy coming out of like a pop punk band doing nothing but like pop. I remember somebody responded and they were like, we don't mind the instrumentals, but your music's sad. And I was like, oh man. And it was just like, oh, gee. And I resisted for so long listening to quote unquote like top 40, I guess, kind of like things that are placed, because I was like, it's easy to write a blanket like, oh, they suck, like, mine's cool, but it was just, there was no real reason behind it. But once I started to look at it, I was like, oh, this is actually really good. I actually loved it more and more. And then here we are in 2023. And then, pop punk gets asked for now. I see things like Machine Gun Kelly-esque, and I'm like, oh, I got that. So it comes back around. And so I can have my moment to bask in that. But at the same time, I expanded into so many other skills and so many other areas purely because I was willing to just like, cool, this is what they're looking for. I'll take the time to like actually listen if I want to do it. Because what's the alternative? Working a job I don't like. Working a job that, that sets another set, because they're doing the same thing. You work for someone that has a set of standards that say, do this, do this, do this. And we go, okay. But somehow when it comes to music, we're like, no.
Yes. I literally had this exact same conversation with someone. And it was just like, you already said it, man. You said it. Like, people will work a job that they hate, but then don't want to do something that maybe you have to mix some records for somebody just to in between syncs and checks and things like that. You may have to do other things using the skills that you have that may not be like the primary thing you want to do, but it's doing something that you love. Like, would you rather do that, or would you rather be at a place for 8, 10, 12 hours that you despise? And I'm not saying everybody's situation like that, but some people hate their jobs, some people don't. But
I forget, I think it was a Gallup poll, and I have to pull up the statistic. I think it was over 60% said they hate what they do for a living. And I'm like, man, 60%. So the average human lifespan is like, well, we're increasing now. So we go past like, into the A's. So it's like, okay, but like to think the majority when they go like, just wait till you retire and you can start enjoying your life. Man, that's really depressing. I'd rather start enjoying it now and doing something that maybe, I get occasionally I don't want to necessarily listen to all public domain Christmas songs and write up different versions. But then I'm like, okay, I worked at a car wash once. I knew nothing about cars. I knew nothing. I was around chemicals and I would smell. Customers would yell. Suddenly, public domain Christmas songs don't seem that bad, actually. They're not too bad. I don't mind hearing another Silent Night or creating another Auld Lang Syne, whatever, how many verses there are in that thing.
Yeah,
but
man.
I think it's that if you're already working something you don't like, would you be willing to learn some new things and some new skills that could potentially open you up to then long-term have something that you love? And that was another question somebody asked, is just like, is this a long-term planning thing? And I love that wording. A long-term planning thing? It absolutely is. Like, this is not, if you're starting out, this isn't a short-term kind of like, oh yeah, there we go, I got it. It's like, this is being patient and staying with it long term. And I think maybe that's why it's not oversaturated, because it kind of weeds out the people that are just like, it didn't happen in 2 weeks. Okay, I'm out of here. And they leave. But the person that's there for like 4 years, 5 years, bettering their craft, really being, listening to others, talking to others, connecting with others. Suddenly they, it's one, then another one, then another one, and another. And that's where it starts to, like, as you said, I can do this for a living and it's fine. Yep.
That's what separates the people who I think have been doing it for a while and those who just kind of dip their toes in the water with it, man, because it is a long play, man, that you have to be patient, and I think that another it's weird. People, like, they ask me, it's like, can you guarantee like a sync? Like, if I learn this stuff, it's like, no. I was like, if anybody guarantees you a placement, like, run, because that's weird. But
it doesn't happen. You're right.
You don't know. You create it, you send it out there. It may not ever get synced. You have to be willing to take that risk.
I have gotten people that go like, what's my return on, how many, will I get that? And I'm like, yeah, you probably will. If you're looking for a definite, like, absolutely 100%, I don't know which song, I don't know when, I don't know, but based on my experience and the experience of others that I know that have done this, they trusted that it would. They, more importantly, were bettering their skills along the way. They didn't stop or plateau at a certain point, nor even when they get to a level that's pretty good, do they allow themselves to plateau, but they keep on, like, seeking help and expanding their skills because they realize the new opportunities and the new things are just bigger. And they're going to require more skills, better skills. I think people want that monetary, like, again, maybe it's because we're used to getting a paycheck at a normal job where even if we hate it, we get that security of like, here's your check for today. And we're like, okay. And then suddenly this unknown thing of just like, when do I get my check? For me, teaching, when I taught guitar lessons, I thought it was safe, but I realized, you know what? It ebbed and flowed because sometimes people will leave. So then my pay would go down and it would go up. And then the summer came, people went away, went down. So it's just like, wait a minute, that was already, even though I was just getting a physical check of just like, yay, but it really was false security. So I might as well invest in something that I love doing, that I believe I can do, and just stay with it.
That's a fact, man. Jobs, you can get that instant gratification. You get after, the check is coming after 2 weeks or weekly if you're, lucky to get paid weekly. But, if you look 10 years after that, will you still be getting paid for all the hours you put in on that job? Whereas music, okay, you may not get anything up front immediately, but you can create something, and then 10 years down the line, what you worked on that one time is still paying you. So it's an investment, man. It's like real estate, dude. Like, people who buy beat up properties and fix them up, they're not making their money. They're in debt when they get that property. Like immediately they have to spend the money to fix it up. Then they got to get a tenant in there or sell it, and they got to wait for all of that to happen, closing and all of that stuff. So they're not seeing their money either. But over time, it pays back, and it's an asset. If they decide to keep it. And, I kind of think of music the same way, man. I'm creating, a piece of property that could pay me potentially, far beyond even my life,
And even on top of that, like when you're creating a piece of music, especially for licensing, you're creating multiple versions of that. It's like here's the bungalow, here's the condo, here's the apartment, here's the 3-story, here's the short story, here's just the one room, here's the studio. And it's just like, your one piece of music could potentially have 10 different versions, which automatically increase. I remember mentioning it to someone. They were like, "Oh, you did 12 tracks." I was like, "Well, yeah, I did 12 tracks, but it's probably at least 80 tracks here that are because this one had 4 versions, this one had 6 different versions, this one had 6, this one." So it's just like if you make, let's say, 5 instrumentals, and there's potential of like 10 other versions of each one. You've got 50 tracks that are ready to go.
Yep.
Does that increase your chances? Yep. Absolutely. Sure does, because they're like, "Oh, there's so many different versions of this. This is fantastic."
Yep. And they're all gonna pay the same amount of money for the use.
Oh my goodness!
If they use a drum and bass or the full version, the full instrumental, a vocal, you'll probably get paid a little bit more. But yeah, dude, like it's I don't know. I love it.
Yeah, I love it too. And that's when it's just when I see those misconceptions, I guess, or, people out there, saying like, "You can get a placement now." And I'm just like, "Nope, you can't." Or it's just like, you could just take any song that you got and just throw it. No, you still have to treat it. You have to build your skills. You have to do the research. You have to put the time in. But I think it goes back to the thing that you said is you have to love it. If you do not love it, it will seem awful. It will seem like the worst thing ever. So slow. And it's just like, that's what, if somebody goes like, "Well, I don't enjoy this." Cool. Then this might not. Have you ever had a surgeon come up to you and be like, "Okay, so we're about to go into surgery. I should let you know, I really hate this job. Seriously, I am going to be on autopilot all the while. But I think the heart's here, and we're gonna I'll go in there. I got other people around me, so it's okay." These tools too, these are the free ones that came with my job, so I'm figuring out. No, so it's just like you're gonna have to upgrade your stuff too as you progress.
Yeah, exactly.
It just boggles my mind, but I feel you're such a good wealth of knowledge in this industry, but you also don't sugarcoat it. Like you're very good at providing the tools for people to be like, "Here, if you want to do this, let's do it." But also too, you're not going to be like, "Here, you're amazing. You're the best. Everything that you do is wonderful." You're willing to be like, "Hey, here's some things you're going to have to do if you want this to get the results that you want."
Yep. Absolutely, man. Because someone had to keep it honest with me, man. You can't grow without honest feedback. And then, just letting people know, like, the resources are out there, like, and a lot of people want to jump. They want to skip the work. They want to jump straight to, well, what company do I send to? All I need is the companies, and my production is good. Like, it's like I can give you companies all day, but if you don't know, how the music should be presented, how to reach out to the companies, how to present yourself, how to write music that's good for sync, you're still going to get rejected. You're going to be back at square one saying sync is a scam or something.
You're going to say, sync is a scam, or it's just like, stupid companies, they don't know what they're missing. He's just like, "I'm going to start my own company, and it's going to be amazing, and they're going to love my music, and I'll let them know." And it's like, okay, go ahead. It's the same thing. Go ahead, start it. "Well, I'll do it tomorrow. Tomorrow I will." You just watch. But it's the same thing. They think that the answer is this, but really it's like, no. I think my friend Michael Elsner tell me, he was like, "Oh, sometimes people are like, 'Hey, how do I do that?' And he was like, 'Listen, you're asking me, how do I go 70 miles an hour and switch gears on this highway where really we're still in the driveway. We got to learn how to back out the car first before we even get to that step,' which is crazy." Yep.
Yep.
But dude, we could keep on going on and on about this. But I think these were some good misconceptions and just some things for people to realize, like, it is possible, but here's some things that might occur along the way and some things not to believe. Or if you hear these phrases like it's oversaturated, it's not. Oh, it's really complicated. It's not. If you're willing to put in the time to do this, it's totally worth it.
Yep. I agree, man. 100%.
Dude, thanks for hanging and talking all different scenarios in sync.
I know, man. Yeah, no, it's always a good time, man. Thanks for having me. This was dope. Dope conversation.
And that does it for this week's episode. It was edited and produced by Chris Falius. I'm Mike Meiers. Thanks for listening.